You've got to ask yourself one question. Do I feel lucky? Well, do you, punk?
And that is indeed the big question. Do you feel lucky? Looter! I'm sure you're not a punk. So this is some more Alpha 18 pre-look of the book series that Madmole is going through. Let's have a look, see what it says, and see how nice this one is. Hope you enjoy.
Hey everyone, it's Joel from the Fun Pimps, and I'm here today to talk about The Lucky Looter. The Lucky Looter is a series of books you can find, and each one unlocks a special perk. So let's get started. Volume 1 is Dukes. If you know where to look, you can find money just laying around. Find more Dukes and loot. So anytime you read this book, you're going to basically, if you would run into some Dukes, you'll probably get a few more every time.
It would be nice if that one actually said how much extra it would give. They did have that in the previous one, which said that you gained 10% more gems and I think diamonds and everything. So it would be nice to say. I mean, of course, we can probably figure that out somehow, but it definitely would be nice to see. Is it going to be 10%? Is it going to be 20%? You know, sort of quantify it.
This one, ammunition, same deal. You find that one, you're going to find more ammo, and
it's same thing. I mean, if you find more ammo, that's fairly vague. I would like to see how much extra I get, just to have a general idea. I would imagine it's probably going to be 10% because that's what it was in the previous series. But still, quantify it. You know, people like to have this quantifiable, just vague things. Just I don't think people are going to really pay enough attention to.
In loot every time you find it. Brass. Brass is the new gold in the wasteland because that's what bullets are made from. Find more brass and loot. This one's extremely awesome. You know, anytime you find scrap brass, you're going to get more brass. And the same way with lead. Lead is the new silver in the apocalypse. Find more lead and loot. Junk. One man's junk is another man's treasure. Find more junk and loot.
Find more junk in loot, but I find junk laying around all the time. So this one is going to be interesting. What does that really mean? Are we talking about like doorknobs laying around? Or are we talking about junk inside the loot? I mean, even doorknobs I wouldn't consider junk because they're just scrappable things. So interesting.
And this one here is food, so you're going to find more cans of food when you find this book. And this last one here is medical supplies. So many cuts, so few bandages. Find more medical supplies in loot. And then the unlock bonus for this particular book series is, this one's amazing. Enemies have a higher chance to drop loot. So anybody who kind of misses, you know, zombies dropping loot, you collect all these and you'll unlock this, and you have a 20% higher chance to, you know, for enemies to drop loot than they would normally. So it's still probably not going to be raining bags of loot, but you know, it's pretty good. This is a nice little reward. I think you guys will like it.
So that's fairly interesting. I mean, I can understand what they're trying to do with the Lucky Looter. I think they need to specify a little bit more. Does it mean that, for instance, if you find lead, that it just has more quantity? Because, you know, if you go and loot something and you find dukes, does it mean that you're more likely to find dukes, or just there are more dukes if you do find them? Does it affect the other loot that might occur? Because it does mention, for instance, that say for the medical supplies, let me see if I can find those ones. Yeah, like this one, you find more medical supplies. Does it mean that you have a greater chance to find medical supplies compared to other loot? Or does it only mean that if you find medical supplies, they're just in larger quantities? Because obviously you don't want to necessarily hamper your other looting just to find more medical. You would like to find more overall. And looking at the last piece of having 20% higher chance to drop loot, that might sound like a lot. I don't think necessarily it is. I think that currently you drop a loot bag something like 5% of the time of killing a zombie. With 20% higher chance, that will bring it to 6%. That's not quite, that's not a lot compared to some of the other ultimates that are in, let's say, the Great Heist or the Almanac. Getting 6% chance to drop loot as opposed to 5. to me is not really that big. If we went from 5 to 8 something, I think what they should have mentioned in specific terms, such as that it is 5% now, and after this one will be 8% or 10% or whatever. Because right now it sounds like a lot because it's 20%, but because that one is specifically on your base chance, it's not a 20% chance total. It's 20% more than currently, and because the current one is so low, it's still going to be really, really low. But at least they're trying. Maybe there's something that can be tweaked in the XML. Actually, that'll be interesting because then we can modify that ourselves. Let's say if you want to have it double, meaning 10% as opposed to 5%, we can do that XML tweak. Well, what do you think? Is this worthwhile? Is this a good series? I think it's a fairly tame one. It does what it says, but compared to the Great Heist and Almanac, I still think the Great Heist so far is the better one. Well, we'll cover more of these one next times. I'll see you again.
Special thanks to the great patrons supporting the channel. If you would like to join the vetted community and support these videos, do follow the Patreon link.